We've just come to a celebration of philanthropy at the school, and I've spent a long time in the education sector, and how people speak here, how people relate with each other here, how they present themselves is one where people do it because their heart's here. When I look back at Sydney High, gee, I had a good time. It was a really good, fun school to be at.
Yeah, it was just a blast from the first day to the last. Enjoyed every minute of it.
So 1960 was my last year, and I don't think there's been a year go by when I've said I'll go back there tomorrow if they'd have me.
How we pushed each other, not just on the sporting field, but academically, and we always had each other's back. So it sort of had a really great collegiate feel, and that was the highlight for me being at High.
So I did not come from the eastern suburbs. I came from north of the harbour. My dad had been here, my brother had been here, so I came under a special sort of system of old boys kids. So I didn't know anyone else here. It was just a terrific sense of very quickly comradeship, good guys to mix with. And the second thing was the, by and large, terrific quality of teachers and the opportunities I had as a kid to explore not just subjects but all sorts of activities.
I remember this as a very, very happy period in my life. I always felt very proud to be a Sydney High School student, and I felt it a real privilege to be here. So it was a very special part of my life and laid the groundwork for what was to come and what's happened.
We were sufficiently non-disciplined to be sufficiently resourceful to actually build something on our preferred learning styles. 6 years of good mates, and those mates are still the same mates I have today. And when we get together, we still talk about the fun times. There's a longevity of mateship that even on an occasion like tonight is present.
Academically, it was like joining a race full of racehorses where they were all going flat out, and so we were all challenged by each other.
People talk about sliding doors, and it's hard to say what the other door was, but for me, it probably wasn't good. It was probably going to a local high school, leaving at year 10, getting a trade, something else. I was lucky, I repeated 6th class, I got into Sydney High through the skin of my teeth. Everyone pushed me up. I got a good degree, I got a good mark, good degree out of University of New South Wales, and I was lucky enough to get a graduate program, and through that I was able to become a CEO of a company. Sydney High created that. Without that base, I don't think I would have been able to do that. There's a very special permission at Sydney Boys High to be whoever you want to be. And for some, it's be the best you can be. And for some, it happens at the time, and for some, it happens later. For me, it happened both.
I don't have a bad word to say about the opportunities that it opened up for me.
I was privileged enough to be elected the school captain in 1960, and I managed to get through the year without making one single enemy, I think, rather than friends that have been friends through my lifetime. So the mateship and experiencing those sorts of learning experiences with those people is a very bonding experience.
I got into 1A, and I remember the English teacher yes, he was an English teacher, but he was a thespian. His class was a play. And for me, actually, it had the joy of learning. That initiative and that encouragement and that support have actually stood me well all my life.
We were competitive, but I wouldn't say we covered ourselves in glory.
I was a school meathead, right? I was in the second row, I was 100 kilos and I rode in the 8. And we had this unbelievable chance to win the comp in 1981 in rugby. And we're at Joey's, up on the hill. We lost 4-3, so a try was 4 points and the penalty was 3. And we had a penalty with about 10 minutes to go. So I don't know if it's a highlight, but it's something all of us who was in that 81 side can still remember what a great game of footy it was, and that we were that close to winning the premiership.
2 years in the first 15, second year as the captain, so we played 14 GPS games, and of those we won one. So it was a tough slog. We weren't thrashed, but...
Well, you did pretty good, but they won the GPS cricket and they came third in the rugby. We're very unlucky not to win the rugby, but you don't want to hear that story. But it wasn't about winning, it was just about having a great time and playing with your mates, and I came last in 3 GPS regattas. So, and I still love rowing. I still love it. So, you know, it was good to win, but didn't have a huge impact on our enjoyment.
Well, I was a reasonably mediocre cricketer, and my footballing prowess was poor. So I don't have too many stories about that. I was in the debating team, chess team, so I do remember the debating team. We always got towelled by Riverview, and not surprising when I think of who was on the team. So on the Riverview team was a young bloke called Paul McClintock, who's got a pretty publicised. He was chairman of Woolworths and all this sort of stuff. And Nick Enright, who was a wonderful playwright, died prematurely. So that I do recall.
There was a cricket field where some of my closest mates were all together in a third 11. You know, we beat Riverview, and it was a game for the ages that 35 years later we still talk about. And I think if you're still talking about a third 11 game 35 years later, that just says Sydney High to me.
You know, for me, head of the river in 1981 as well. So the second 4 and the first 4 came third. And this lady just came down to the start. She was living in the house there on the Nepean River and said, hey, you guys are having a fantastic day. Your 2 crews just came third. So we sort of sat on that start line and we knew that we were going to have a great row. And we probably did our best row on the day, which was, you know, a highlight of the sporting days for me there at High.
I kind of liked sums and I was interested in sport. So I became the year bookmaker. So when we went on history excursions, I brought out the roulette wheel. When we went to the school carnival, I set up bets on who I thought would run, and they were fantastic athletes. And when the rugby league was on at the cricket ground, I started pick the score, pick the 6 winners. And it was nothing. I didn't, and playing cards and things, it was just part of the tapestry of growing to discover, I guess, entrepreneurship.
I am possibly the only person that has been dropped from first grade to third grade in the rugby and cricket. So I have a lot of stories about my lack of performance, and the funny thing, in the 35 years since I've left, I've talked up that I have actually much better than I am.
In about year 9, I walked into the deputy headmaster's office and offered him a proposition, and that was, sir, the tennis courts, they're empty in the weekend. He said yes. I said, well, what about if I start a tennis club and we play competition tennis? That club, which was Score Tennis Club, which I started in about 1970, went for about 15 years.
One of Sydney High's great products is a chap called Sir Michael Marmot, and he and I went through school at the same time, and we played in the same cricket teams throughout. But I didn't, from the day we walked out in November 1961, I didn't see him ever again until just prior to our 50-year anniversary in 2011, and the organisers of that occasion said, see if I can find Michael Marmot. So I googled, and not only was he Michael Marmot, he was Sir Michael Marmot, and it turns out that he's one of the world's leading epidemiologists. And has had extraordinarily celebrated professional career. So I decided, and this is 50 years on, I decided, look, I'd make contact. I found his email address, dear Mikey, as we used to call him at school, in brackets, excuse me, Sir Michael, do you remember me? My name's Bruce Corlett. And within a quarter of an hour he came back on email, this is 50 years on, and said, how could I ever forget you? That stumping you missed in 1960. I was a wicketkeeper, he was a leg spin bowler. There you are. Arising out of that, he came out for, just prior to our 50th year anniversary, and I organised a dinner at my home for him and a lot of our colleagues, and especially his colleagues. And I asked him as we sat down for dinner, and Bob Outerside came, the former headmaster. I said, because none of the others had really, some were quite aware of what he'd done, but they weren't absolutely aware. So I said, Sir Michael, tell us what's happened in the last 50 years. And he spoke on an impromptu basis for an hour and a half, and not one of us made a sound. Bob Outerside said it was the most memorable speech he had ever heard, the most inspiring speech. This man, product of this school, now a leading figure in the world's medical, especially epidemiology world. So they were the sorts of people that you met at Sydney High.
My 10 best mates are all boys that I went to school with. So not all from the same year, because when we left school we all went and played rugby together at the Old Boys, Sydney High Old Boys. So there's a variety of years. We've been having a drink at the Covent Garden on the Thursday before Christmas for over 30 years now, and there's always over 30 of us that turn up for that, and it's all Sydney High. So
there was another quite celebrated chap who I sat beside on my first day called Rene Rifkin. Have you heard of Rene Rifkin? I suspect you will have. And he was brilliant, and he was the most popular boy in our year, I think. Didn't play sport, very, very large, became one of Australia's leading stockbrokers, and then very sadly got a brain tumour which changed him absolutely. But he was, all of those people who come to that dinner at my home annually speak of Rene as the very special person in our year, in their life. I have a dinner at my home each year for our rugby first 15 plus a couple of others from 1961, and we have it on Bledisloe Cup night because no one wants to go to Homebush. And so we start at 5 and have drinks and then dinner, and then we go downstairs to watch the Cup, and we get 100% acceptance on every occasion. All Sydney High boys from my era, mostly rugby players.
We've had a 16As club that's gone on for, so I'm 55 now, left in 81, and we meet 2 or 3 times a year for guys who are in that 16As footy team. And there's guys who dig trenches for Waverley Council, there's guys who've won Academy Awards, there's guys who run real estate businesses, Johnny McGrath. So we've had this group of guys who just know when we're telling the truth, when we're going through some hardship, when we're having a good time. They bring it all together. It's sort of the grounding that we've had all the way through our life, and that was the mateship that we had in the team of 1981 or the year of 1981.
But it was at school where I established the relationships that are the basis of my friendships, many of my friendships today.
The school's given so much to me. It's time that I gave back. The limited amount that I had to do to buy a brick to build a school, and I'll just talk about that. they said, what did you want on the brick? My name's David Scribner, but everybody in the world knows me by Scribber. On that brick it says Scribber. There's only one GPS school that lets you do that, and that's Sydney Boys High.
When I came back last November and met the guys who are, you know, 5th form, 6th form, then the new prefects, I was blown away. So what it told me was that the school has a really enduring ethos. I really liked what I saw, and I actually saw myself in the kids in the guys that I met. I was delighted.
I could spend the rest of my life doing things for this school. I would never be able to repay the gratitude that I have for the school, not just academically, but as we said earlier, the mateship, the friendships that I made that have been through a lifetime. So it's pretty simple. Yeah.
I wanted to actually give time and effort and money back to an establishment that had given something to me.
It gives you the opportunity of CHS on a Wednesday afternoon, GPS on a Saturday, walking around in a blazer. You know, it's the flat, the girls, it's just life. You know, like Sydney High is the best school in New South Wales, no, Australia, and so you have to actually give back.
When people can be themselves and when they can be real and when they can be evolved, the opportunity for understanding keeps growing.
We learn how to win, we learn how to lose, and we had an all-round education, so that's had a massive impact on my life as well.
I mean, it's the foundation of your life.
I just love the joint.